My name's Nicole. Growing up, the difference between me and my twin sister, Rachel, was huge. She was the golden child, and, well, I wasn't. Our dad was a strict university professor who spent all his time on books and lectures. Our mom was the perfect housewife, dedicated to her home and family, always pushing us to follow in her footsteps. For as long as I can remember, home felt more like being constantly judged. My parents had a vision of the perfect family, and it didn't include a daughter who wore band t-shirts and kept to herself. "Nicole, why can't you be more like your sister?" was my mom's favorite phrase, usually said when I came to breakfast with my headphones in, trying to block everything out. Rachel, on the other hand, soaked up all their approval. "I don't get why it's so hard for you to wear a nice dress and smile more," she'd say, flipping her perfect hair. It felt like we were from different worlds. One Monday, our family was getting ready for one of Dad's boring faculty parties, which we had to attend. I decided to rebel in the smallest way I could. I put on my darkest eyeliner and wore boots that definitely didn't fit the dress code. "You're not going out like that, are you?" Mom asked when she saw me on the stairs, her eyes glued to my boots like they were dirty. I shrugged. "Why not?" She sighed, the kind of long sigh that made me feel like I was ruining her perfect world. "Please, Nicole, just this once, can't you try to fit in?" she begged. "For what? So you can act like we're the perfect family?" I shot back, fed up with it all. "It's not pretending. It's about showing respect for your father," she said, her voice getting serious. Rachel, hearing us, came down the hallway, her heels clicking loudly. "Mom's right, Angela. It's not that hard to look decent. Why do you always make things difficult?" "Maybe I don't want to be a copy of you, Rachel," I snapped, feeling my face get hot. I hated these arguments, hated being compared to her. I hated feeling like I didn't fit in my own home. Dad showed up at the bottom of the stairs, his eyebrows furrowed. His voice was firm. "Nicole, go change now. We're leaving in 22 minutes. There was no arguing with him. He didn't have to yell. The look of disappointment on his face was enough to make me turn around and go back to my room. I swapped my boots for plain flats and wiped off half of my eyeliner. On the way to the party, the car was silent, except for the classical music Dad always played because he thought it was calming. I stared out the window as the trees blurred by. In that moment, I promised myself that one day, I'd live a life where no one could tell me what to wear, how to act, or who to be. I'd be free from these constant expectations. My room was the only place where I could pretend I was somewhere else, away from all the pressure. Unlike the rest of the house, which was filled with my parents' choices, my room was mine. It wasn't much, just walls covered in sketches and music posters, but it was my escape. One evening, I was trying to get lost in my favorite music when Dad knocked and walked into my room with his usual frown. "Nicole, turn that noise down. And why haven't you studied with Rachel today?" "You both have exams coming up," he said in a stern voice. I pulled out one earbud and replied calmly, "I've been studying, just not with Rachel. I learn better on my own." Dad shook his head, clearly not convinced. "You know the rules. Your sister gets good grades, and you should be doing the same. I don't know why you always make things difficult." I felt my frustration building. "I'm not trying to make things difficult. I just don't see why I have to do everything Rachel's way. Can't I have my own way of studying?" He didn't answer that, and instead changed the subject. "And those friends of yours, I saw you with them at the cafe yesterday. I don't think they're a good influence. You should be spending time with the daughters of my colleagues. They're more suitable." I felt my temper rising. "Suitable for what? For you? Because they talk about economics and pretend to enjoy those boring university gatherings?" Before he could respond, Mom appeared at the door, her voice sharp as she added, "Your father is right. Those girls come from good families. They know how to behave. They're the kind of friends you should want." I stood up, facing both of them. What if I don't want that? I don't want friends picked for me. What if I want to choose my own friends, decide what I study, or even what I want to be? "That's enough, Nicole," Mom said in a firm tone. "You know your future is with the university. Your father has ensured that. And after you graduate, you need to start thinking about settling down. We've already discussed this." "Settling down?" I repeated, the words feeling like a life sentence. You mean becoming someone's wife like Rachel? Is that all you think I'm meant for? Mom's face softened, but her voice stayed strong. We want what's best for you. Following the path we've set will give you a good life. A good life. I repeated, bitterness in my voice. Is it really a good life if it's someone else's idea of good? No one answered. They didn't need to. We all knew there was no point in arguing. They had their plans, and they expected me to follow them, just like Rachel. Rachel and I were like two sides of the same coin, always together, but never the same. At the university where Dad taught, our differences became even more obvious. She was studying business management, always the star student, asking the right questions, impressing the professors. I was in the same program, but it felt wrong, like wearing shoes that didn't fit, awkward and uncomfortable. One afternoon, while I was buried in textbooks at the library, Rachel walked in, perfectly organized and smiling. Hey, Angela, you coming to the study group tonight? Professor Hall might drop by, and it'd be good for us to make an appearance, she said lightly, but I could feel the pressure in her words. I looked up, feeling her expectations weighing on me. No, I don't think so. Those things aren't really my scene, you know. She frowned, dropping her books on the table with a thud. It's not about it being your scene, Angela. It's about making the right impressions. You need to take this seriously, we're graduating soon. I shrugged and turned back to my notes. I am taking it seriously, just not in a way that makes me miserable. Why should I pretend? Because, Angela, she said, her voice firm, sometimes you have to play the game to get ahead. You think I enjoy all this? She gestured to her perfectly organized textbooks and color-coded notes. It's not about liking it, it's about doing what's necessary. I shook my head, pushing my chair back. Maybe I'm tired of doing what's necessary according to everyone else. Did you ever think of that? Her voice softened, but her eyes stayed hard. Angela, I'm just trying to help. Dad won't always be there to fix things for you. What are you going to do if you keep pushing everyone away? Maybe I'll figure it out on my own, I said quietly. Maybe that's what I need. I don't need to follow Dad's plan or yours, I shot back, feeling a burst of defiance. Rachel sighed, clearly frustrated. You're so stubborn. Just try, okay? If not for yourself, then for me. Show up tonight, talk to Professor Hall. It won't kill you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw that beneath the perfect exterior was someone who actually cared, in her own way. Fine, I'll think about it. I conceded, not ready to commit to more. Thank you, she said, her smile returning. It's not that bad, you know. You might even like it if you gave it a chance. Doubt it, I muttered, but I knew I'd already given in. For Rachel, I'd show up, sit through another boring discussion, and nod at the right times. It was only a few hours, how bad could it be? As it turned out, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Professor Hall was actually interesting when he wasn't lecturing from a podium. I even asked a question, which earned a surprised but pleased look from Rachel. Later, as we walked back to our dorm, Rachel nudged me. See? Not so terrible, right? That little piece between us didn't last long. In our final year, Rachel introduced us to her fiancé, a lawyer 13 years older, well-established, and exactly what our parents had always dreamed of. Mom and Dad were thrilled, praising Rachel for making such a smart match. Then, they turned their expectant eyes on me. Now, Nicole, it's your turn to find someone suitable, Dad said one evening over dinner, his tone making it clear that my time was running out. Mom nodded eagerly, already planning my future, like it was another one of her organized home projects. Think about your future, dear. Someone who can provide for you, who has a good standing. I stared down at my plate, feeling the pressure build. Rachel's wedding was a perfect display of Mom's vision, everything meticulously planned, from the bridesmaids' dresses to the flowers, all showcasing our family's prestige. After the wedding, Mom often visited Rachel, offering advice and making sure her life followed the path she had mapped out. Watching this, I knew one thing for sure. I didn't want my life to be shaped by someone else's hands. One day, I was walking down the street, lost in thoughts of how to escape the life my parents had planned for me. That's when I heard the deep rumble of a motorcycle. Curiosity pulled me toward the sound, and then I saw him, Charles, with his leather jacket and carefree smile, pulling up beside me. "You look like you need a ride," he called out over the roar of the engine, a playful twinkle in his eyes. I hesitated, looking back toward home, then at his outstretched hand. What did I have to lose? "Sure, why not?" I said, my voice a mix of nerves and excitement. As I climbed onto the back of his bike, a surge of adrenaline rushed through me. The wind whipped through my hair, and for the first time in ages, I laughed a real, genuine laugh. Charles shouted something about showing me his world, and I held on tighter, not wanting the moment to end. We stopped at a diner popular with bikers. Over burgers and fries, Charles told me about his life as a welder, his passion for motorcycles, and his love for the open road. It was so different from anything I knew, raw and real. "Don't you get scared living like this?" I asked, my voice barely cutting through the noise around us. "Scared? No way. It's thrilling. You never know what's around the corner." "Isn't that better than having everything planned out for you?" he replied, his eyes lighting up with excitement. Over the next few weeks, we met in secret. Each ride on Charles's bike took me further from the life I was supposed to live and closer to the one I wanted. The speed, the adventure, it wasn't just about the thrill. It was about feeling alive and free. One evening, as we watched the sunset from a quiet overlook, Charles turned to me and said, "Nicole, I don't just ride to escape. I ride to feel alive, to make every moment count. With you, every moment feels like it matters." I leaned into him, my heart racing. "I've never felt like this before. You make me feel free, Charles." He smiled and pulled me closer. "Then let's stop just existing. Let's live." 4 months with Charles felt like a lifetime of moments I had always dreamed of. The night he proposed under the stars, with the gentle hum of his bike in the background, my heart said yes before I could even speak. It was perfect, except for one thing: my parents. I struggled with the thought of introducing Charles to them. He was everything they wouldn't approve of: his rough edges, his wild spirit, his simple yet fulfilling life as a welder. But love gave me courage, and I knew it was time to face them. The day I brought Charles home, he wore his usual leather vest, black t-shirt, ripped jeans, and a bandana. I loved that about him. He was completely himself. As we walked up the driveway, I could already feel the weight of my parents' judgment. When we stepped inside, Mom's face went pale at the sight of Charles, her eyes wide in shock. "What in the world, Nicole?" she whispered, barely able to speak. Dad's reaction was harsher. His words cut like knives. "Who is this? And why is he dressed like a thug in our house?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. "Mom, Dad, this is Charles. He's the man I love, and we're getting married." Their silence was overwhelming. Then Dad looked at Charles, his voice full of disapproval. "Married? What do you do for a living, young man? What are your qualifications?" Charles, to his credit, didn't flinch. "I'm a welder. I took some specialized courses after high school. I work hard and make an honest living." The look on my parents' faces was a mix of shock and disbelief. Mom looked like she might faint. "A welder? Nicole, you can't be serious." Dad's voice rose, anger clear. "You expect us to bless this? To let you throw away your future for a welder?" I felt my resolve harden. "Yes, because he makes me happy. Isn't that what should matter?" "But the life you'll lead," Mom began, her voice shaky. "It'll be the life I choose," I said firmly, my voice growing stronger. Dad shook his head, his mind made up. "We cannot and will not support this. If you choose him, don't expect to be part of this family." His words broke my heart, but not my decision. Charles squeezed my hand, giving me the strength to face them. "Then I choose Charles. I choose us. I choose my happiness." Mom's eyes filled with tears, and Dad's jaw tightened. "If you walk out with him, don't bother coming back," he said coldly. As Charles and I left my parents' house, my emotions were all over the place: pain, relief, excitement, and fear, all mixed together. The night air felt different, like every breath was leading me into a new life. We rode in silence for a while, the steady hum of the motorcycle beneath us, the only sound. When we finally stopped at a small diner on the edge of town, Charles turned to me, his face serious. "Are you sure about this, Nicole? Really sure? There's no going back after tonight," he said, his eyes searching mine for any sign of doubt. I nodded, squeezing his hand. "I've never been more sure of anything. Being with you feels right. It feels like what I'm supposed to do." He smiled that charming smile that had won me over the first day we met. "All right then, let's do it. Let's start our life together." Inside the diner, we found a quiet booth in the corner. The waitress brought us 2 coffees without asking, and we sat there, planning our next steps. "So, what's first?" I asked, stirring cream into my coffee, watching it swirl. "We'll need to find a place to stay, at least for a while. Then maybe look for jobs. I've got some friends who can help us get started," Charles said, his tone practical but hopeful. "It's going to be tough, isn't it?" I asked, feeling both nervous and excited. I wasn't really asking, more just stating the obvious. The reality of what we were doing was sinking in. Charles reached across the table, covering my hand with his. "It might be tough, but we'll handle it together. We've both been through hard times before, right?" I couldn't help but laugh. A quick, real laugh.
"Right."
Together. We spent hours in that diner, talking and planning. Every so often, Charles would throw out an idea that sounded so wild and free, it made my heart race. "And maybe one day, we'll save enough to take that road trip across the country, just you, me, and the open road," he said. "I like that," I replied, letting myself dream bigger than I ever had before. As we rode back into the city, we started searching for our new life. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. We found a small apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Charles got a job at a local garage, and I picked up shifts at a nearby diner. Life wasn't easy, but it was ours. We made it work with what we had, and every night, coming home to each other felt like we had everything. Months later, we decided it was time to make things official and got married in a small, intimate ceremony. I held on to a tiny hope that my family would come, that they'd see how happy I was and let go of their judgments. But the seats reserved for them stayed empty, and no messages of congratulations came. Despite the sting of their absence, the day was perfect because it was ours. Over time, I grew very close to Charles's mom. She welcomed me with open arms, calling me her daughter and helping fill the void left by my family's rejection. Her warmth and love healed some of the pain my parents had caused. Things started looking up for us. After Charles completed training and became a certified underwater welder, his income jumped to $450,000 a year. That change made a huge difference. We were able to buy a townhouse in a nice area, the kind of place I'd always dreamed of, but never thought I'd actually live in. I started working as a dispatcher at Charles's company, and it didn't feel like just a job. It felt like I was part of something important, supporting the man I loved and building our future together. On weekends, we'd escape the city on his bike, speeding through winding roads and enjoying breathtaking views. Those moments, with the wind in my hair and Charles's warmth behind me, were pure bliss. Living close by, my mother-in-law became a regular visitor. One afternoon, while Charles was in the garage tinkering with his bike and I was making coffee, she arrived looking a bit troubled. "There's been some bad news," she said. She sat down at the kitchen table and said, "There's something about a professor at the university involved in a harassment scandal." My heart skipped a beat. "Oh, did they say who it was?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, but dreading the answer. She shook her head. "No, they didn't mention a name on the radio, but you know how these things go. It's probably all over the TV by now." Nodding, I turned on the television and tuned into the news. Sure enough, there was a report on the scandal, and just as I feared, my father's face appeared on the screen. The anchor described the accusations, and I felt a cold wave of shock wash over me. I turned off the TV and sat down, trying to process it all. Charles came in, wiping his hands on a rag, and saw the look on my face. "What's wrong, babe?" he asked, concern all over his face. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "It's my dad. He's been accused of harassing a student." Charles's expression hardened for a moment, but then he came over and took my hand. I'm sorry, Nicole. That's tough. How do you want to handle it? I shook my head, not sure what to do. I don't know. We're not even close anymore. What can I do? He squeezed my hand, understanding. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. We don't have to figure it out right now. I decided to wait and see how things played out before making any decisions. Whatever happened, I knew Charles would be by my side, and that gave me the reassurance I needed to face whatever came next. Life had been peaceful until one afternoon at work, when a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. I hadn't seen my parents in a long time, and seeing them brought back a flood of emotions I thought I had put behind me. They both looked very different. The scandal had clearly taken a toll. Mom had lost a lot of weight and looked older, while Dad seemed broken, a shadow of the stern man he used to be. Mom saw me and rushed over, arms open, as if nothing had happened, as if the years of distance and disapproval could be erased in an instant. But I couldn't hug her, not now. Instead, I stepped back and took Charles's hand, finding strength in his presence. Nicole, it was so hard to find you, Mom said, her voice shaky with emotion. Dad, always blunt, got straight to the point, his voice rough and bitter. I was accused unfairly, you know. I went to your sister's husband for help, but he wanted a fortune. Your sister took his side, and now they've kicked us out. We need your help. I stared at them, disbelief and anger swirling inside me. Help? After all these years, now you show up and ask for help. Mom's voice was desperate. We have nowhere else to go. They've disowned us too. We thought maybe we could stay with you. I almost laughed at how ridiculous it was. Stay with me? After you disowned me? You made it clear I wasn't your daughter anymore. Dad's face turned red, his temper rising. You owe us, Nicole, after everything we've done for you. You're wrong, I said, feeling Charles squeeze my hand for support. I don't owe you anything. You threw me out because I chose my happiness over your demands. And now you want to just move in and pretend like we're a family? The situation was getting out of control, and I noticed people starting to watch, a small crowd forming. Mom began to cry loudly, drawing even more attention. You're being ungrateful after everything we've done for you, she accused through her tears. I took a deep breath, my mind made up. No, Mom, I'm not ungrateful. I'm free and happy. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. As we walked away, I heard Dad yelling, but Charles leaned over and quietly told the security team, don't let them come here again. The following months flew by, filled with love and peace. We welcomed a son into our family, a new beginning for us. My parents never came back. That day in the parking lot was the last time I saw them. While a part of me was sad for what could have been, I knew I had made the right choice for myself and my family.